Afternoon. Absolutely. We will rise up. It's a pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our friends, our guests. We cheerfully welcome you. We're delighted and thrilled you're here. Welcome to the third Mental Health Forum. Our goal is to inspire and motivate. This forum is sponsored by Business Smart Enterprise, Inspire Teas and Design. Let's get started. We will ask if everyone can mute their devices. May I introduce the founder and president of Mental Health and Underserved Communities, none other, Carolyn McKenzie. Carolyn, please unmute your phone, your device.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to honor May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. Also, May is my niece's birthday. So this is a very, very special time, sentimental time in my life. Why are we doing this? We do this as a legacy for my niece, to honor her memory. My niece was drop dead gorgeous. She was brilliant. She had a successful business. She was a loving mother, a loving wife. She was my best friend. She was my daughter. We had no idea that she had an underlying mental illness until one day she started talking not like herself. And she called me one night and she was crying, and I asked her husband, I told her husband to bring her to me. So to make a long story short, my baby had a psychotic break. She stabbed me and she killed herself. So I had to learn how to turn my pain into purpose. The only way that I could coexist with this pain is to do something positive. So I chose to keep her alive because I love her too much to let her go. So she lives through every mental health program that God has given me, and this is one of them. So each year we celebrate her birthday, which is May the 11th, and we celebrate Mental Health Awareness Month. So I appreciate you so much because we are going to remove the stigma, break the chains of silence, so people won't be afraid to go and get help. There's nothing wrong when you are having some issues emotionally or psychologically. That doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that there's help out there, and we want to educate the general public, specifically in the underserved communities. So Latasha, this is for you. I love you always.
So inspiring. Thank you, Carolyn. We would like to acknowledge our sponsors, Discovery Chiropractic and the Church of Scientology of Georgia. Next, we will have three individuals who will provide inspiring opening remarks. Beginning with Gwendolyn Bryant, Executive F&G Bryant Foundation. Gwendolyn, will you please unmute your device?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and to be a part of this wonderful remembrance, and making sure that we're taking time to observe our mental health and to make sure that we remove, as Carolyn said, the stigma of mental health. So we're so excited to be here. As you said, Sunny, I am the Executive Director for Floyd and Gwen Bryant Foundation. We were started in 2018. My husband and I decided that we wanted to give back. We wanted to do, just as Carolyn has, I like to call her my big sister, has inspired us to do so often through her work. We decided to follow in her footsteps. And so in doing so, we want to share and encourage everyone to do exactly what we're doing here at the Bryant Foundation. We focus on helping families, encouraging children through cultural awareness and experiences. All too often, we have children that have never been outside of their community, have never left their street. And so our focus is to make sure that they have those experiences so that they can impact the world. A part of doing that, a part of giving back means that we have the opportunity to encourage families through marriage and empowerment. We have a marriage retreat, and we would love for you to join us in this journey. For more information about the Bryant Foundation, you can check out our website, Floyd and Gwen Bryant Foundation. We would love for you to partner with us. Just as Carolyn has taught us, relationships are everything. And we look forward to embarking on this journey and growing our culture awareness with our children and our families.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. Thank you for all that you do, your partnership, and your contributions. Next, we have Regina Lewis Ward, candidate, Georgia House District 109. Regina, please unmute your device.
Yes, can you hear me, Sunny? Hi, thank you. I actually just jumped on right in time. I was having problems with the link, so I guess our timing is really perfect.
All is well.
Yes. So good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Regina Lewis Ward, and I am a candidate for the Georgia State House District 109. And District 109 covers parts of Stockbridge, McDonough, Conyers, and Covington. And I'm running to be the next state representative, basically because not everyone in my district is thriving. And they need a leadership who listens and also knows the heartbeat of the community. So if I can have a moment to just take you back to the last session that we had, where Georgia did not accept the Medicaid waiver. And as a result, there are more than 700,000 people living here who don't have medical coverage. And those people actually fall into what we call a gap, where they are considered too poor to receive the subsidies, and they don't qualify for Medicaid. And so let's talk a little bit about exactly what Medicaid expansion is. And it's just an extension of the Affordable Care Act, where medical coverage is given to low-income families, families with children, people with disabilities, and those also with mental illnesses. And just because our families don't have medical insurance, it doesn't mean that we won't take our children to the doctor. Just like many of us on this call, if our child gets sick, we're going to take them to the doctor, and we're going to have out-of-pocket expenses. And when we have those out-of-pocket expenses, that money is taken away from maybe food or housing or any other basic necessity that we may have to use our money for. So we see that Medicaid expansion not only offers medical coverage, but it also is necessary and move our people toward the middle class. While that
I
is,
forgot to put Zoom on your phone, so you have to look at it from mine.
what's that? What, was she talking to me?
No, you can resume, Regina. All is well.
Oh, okay. So we see that medical expansion does help move people toward the middle class. And the person that I am running against, he voted no for medical expansion. And as your state representative, I'm going to support all policies that move us toward a more prosperous Georgia. So really, those are all my remarks that I have. If you need any more information about my campaign, or you would like to follow my campaign, you can do so at my website, which is reginaLewisWard.com. And my election is November the 3rd, and I appreciate whatever support that anyone on this call may have. And I will hang around for if anyone has any questions. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you this afternoon.
You're welcome, Regina, and thank you. Thank you for being a voice in the community, often being a voice for those who do not have a voice. So we thank you.
Thank you.
Moving forward, Dr. Brian, intern Discover Chiropractic. Will you please unmute your device?
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Brian with Discover Chiropractic, and we're located in Stockbridge, right off North Henry Boulevard behind the Walmart. Pretty easy to find. First, I want to say I'm really excited to be on this call, and I appreciate you allowing me to be on and to speak about how chiropractic relates to mental health. And I'm also looking forward to hearing from the other professionals as well. It really is our mission at Discover Chiropractic to empower people, to lift people up, but also to inspire hope. And I think now more than ever, that's super important. The current climate that we're in, we want to be remembered through this time as being there for our customers, being there for our patients. So I want to speak on a little bit how chiropractic relates to mental health. So we are neurologically based chiropractors. And what that simply means is we work exclusively with the nerve system. So that's the brain, the spinal cord, and all the nerves. So very simply, the brain sends messages down the spine out through the nerves to control and regulate every function in the body. From our heart beating, to our lungs breathing, to our food digesting, what we're concerned with is the spinal bones and their structure. So when spinal bones shift out of proper alignment, you can kind of see that, it can put pressure and irritation on the spinal nerves, essentially adding stress to the spine, not allowing the brain to fully communicate with the body. Now, where this is really important is I'm going to explain very simply two systems of the nervous system. So there's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So the sympathetic, I know it's a big word, but you've probably heard of it. It's the fight or flight. It's the go, go, go. You can also think of it as a foot on the gas pedal. Now, the parasympathetic is the rest and digest. It's the calming. It promotes healing. And you can think of that as the brake pedal. So in chiropractic, we want there to be a conjunction of both of these. And now in a time like this and people who struggle with mental health issues, we see that the sympathetic is really high, and it's causing the body to be very tight, very stressed. And especially today's climate, people have been in this state for a really long time, for 2 to 3 months, because everywhere we turn, there's fear, there's these horrible numbers, and of course there's a lot of tragedy and as well as uncertainty. So what we specialize in is measuring how much nerve interference is in the spine, and then how we correct it. Very simple, very gentle. We just realign those bones, gently guiding them back into their straight up and down alignment. What it truly does is allow the body to relax and promotes healing. I hope that made sense. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. You can put it in the chat. I'll stick around. And we do have a special promotion of $27. If you want to take advantage of that, you'll get a consultation as well as a neurological assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brian. Thank you for being inspiring, helping us. In addition, thank you for helping our bodies to relax. Awesome. Next coming up, we have our presenters. Our presenters, well, after each presenter's presentation, we will have a question and answer. At the bottom of your screen, and there is a chat button. Please deposit any questions you may have via the chat. If you're utilizing your mobile device, in the upper left-hand corner, you will find the menu. Click chat, deposit your questions. Unfortunately, because of time constraints, we probably more than likely will not get to all questions. No worries. We will send follow-up emails to you directly with your questions. Be sure to send us your questions. Awesome. Beginning, our first presenter, Charlene Flaggs, psychotherapist, executive director, Matters of the Heart Counseling Services. What is mental health? Charlene, please unmute your device.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for attending this very special virtual event in recognition of Mental Health Month and recognition of Ms. McKenzie's niece. Along with extending my thank yous, I want to thank Mrs. McKenzie for this opportunity to speak to you. And just, it is such a tremendous honor, Carolyn. I appreciate it. Also, a special thank you. I have a couple of family members that have joined me today. Just quickly, my sister Patricia Dillard is on board. My son, Dr. Desmond Banks, is on board, and I have a number of friends on board. So thank you so much to all of you and to all of those special individuals that came on board to support me. What I'm going to do is to move into the presentation. I will be sharing my screen with you. I will be utilizing PowerPoint. You will be able to see, can you see that? Can you just nod and let me know you see it?
Yes, we do see that.
Just 1 second. Just one. Nod for me again.
Yes, we can see.
Thank you. So the topic of my presentation is understanding mental health in this holistic perspective, mind, body, and spirit. And I was so pleased to hear the chiropractor speaking it in that way. So following him, I will just be reinforcing the information that he provided already. The primary goals and objectives of my presentation are to briefly explore the interconnectedness of the mind, body, and spirit on mental health. We don't oftentimes think about how they are connected, and they indeed are. Mind, body, and spirit impact mental health. I will also briefly identify symptoms of primary psychological disorders, and then I will move into a brief discussion on treatment approaches. The primary disorders that I will be sharing with you today include major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and schizophrenia. But before I move into that, just a little discussion on why this is important. And I'd like to do that by sharing the prevalence. How common are mental illnesses? And some of you may not be aware of this, but mental illnesses are the most common health conditions in the United States. The most common, more common than heart disease, cancer, diabetes. Mental illnesses combined are the most common health conditions in the United States. More than 50% will be diagnosed with a mental illness or disorder at some time during their life course. 1 in 5 Americans will experience a mental illness in a given year, which means with that 1 in 5, which means every family in this country is impacted by mental illness. 1 in 5 children, either currently or at some point during their life, will be diagnosed with a mental illness. 1 in 25 Americans live with a serious mental illness, such as schizophrenia or major depressive disorder. So that gives insight into how important it is, the forum that we're having today. Moving into the first diagnosis, major depressive disorder, I'll share with you primary symptoms. Sadness, we're familiar with that. We may not be familiar those with the other symptoms. There's also just a loss of interest in activities that one would normally find enjoyable. And that's usually seen by an individual withdrawing. The other major symptom that you might see in depression that we don't often consider is just fatigue, extreme fatigue. And sometimes individuals are unfortunately perceived as lazy, but it's just actually fatigue. Depression is an illness and exemplifies the topic that affects both the body and spirit. There can be a change in eating patterns, eating too much, eating too little, change in sleeping patterns, sleeping too much, not sleeping enough, difficulty focusing, feelings of worthlessness or guilt. Another major symptom of depression that's not often discussed is anger and irritability. And also, unfortunately, a symptom of depression is suicidal thoughts, ideations, and attempts. Over the past decade, suicide has increased by 30% in this country, unfortunately. Now, one of the things that was mentioned is the stigma. Even though mental illness are more common than physical illness, we're less likely to seek care. So one of the things I'd like to do is share, as I've already shared with the data that is common, but individuals that we perceive that are highly successful cope with mental illness. And you could probably readily recognize these individuals. The Rock, Brad Pitt, Michelle Williams are all diagnosed with major depressive disorder. And if you Google them, they readily talk about their disorder. Michelle even talks about her first suicide attempt, which unfortunately occurred at age 8. She also talks about when she first signed her $1 million contract with Destiny's Child, along with Beyonce, she was in a serious, in a period of a major depressive episode. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is to dismantle some of the myths that you may have about individuals with mental illness. We're not people with horns growing out of our heads. It doesn't have to do with intellect. It affects every person in this country, even those individuals that we perceive as highly successful, because it does not define you. It's information that you can use so that you can effectively manage your symptoms. Now, I need to mention this. Because of our current climate, and someone mentioned already, COVID-19, according to a Harvard study and a University of Michigan study, from February 16th to March 15th, the number of antidepressants filled increased by 18.6%. All of the symptoms of depression that I mentioned, the survey found that people are now experiencing. According to the Harvard professor, he said, "I don't know anyone right now," and I want to repeat that, "I don't know anyone right now that's not having depression-like symptoms." And this is Lana Marquez, a psychologist at Harvard Medical School. She says it's hard to keep going when our brains are constantly on fight or flight, and that was mentioned. And I'll talk a little bit more about how fight or flight affects our mental health. It's making people really tired right now. It's making it difficult for us to concentrate. It's not abnormal. If you're feeling any of these right now, it's not abnormal. It's because of what we're experiencing due to COVID-19. The next disorder I'd like to briefly discuss is bipolar disorder. It's considered under the category of the mood disorders, along with major depressive disorder. The primary difference between bipolar disorder and major depressive disorder is the presence of the manic episode. And with the manic episode, there's increased energy levels, there's mood swings, there's irritability, and there's also anger. It was formerly called, bipolar disorder was formerly called manic depressive disorder. So there is the association. The one thing I'd like to just to bring to your attention is that there are two primary types of bipolar disorder. Bipolar 1, where the person is primarily in that manic phase. Again, the high energy, irritability, anger. And then bipolar 2 disorder, where the person does experience the manic phase, but is more likely to be depressed. Moving into the next disorder, anxiety disorder. This is so important because along with depression increasing, we're also experiencing right now high levels of anxiety. There are several types of anxiety, but I'm just going to share with you symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder, which includes worrying frequently about a number of things, feeling restless, easily fatigued, difficulty concentrating, being irritable, muscle tension, muscle headaches. I've already mentioned frequently worrying and difficulty sleeping. And probably what you've noticed already is that some of these symptoms overlap with depression and bipolar disorder. That is common, which is why it's important to see a mental health professional, because they're trained to differentiate the symptoms to make the proper diagnosis. Moving quickly on to the next disorder, and that is schizophrenia. There are three types of symptoms, three categories of symptoms, but I'm only going to discuss one, and that's psychotic symptoms. And what I want you to do is to put out of your mind what you typically think of when you hear the word psychotic. The scientific meaning of psychotic or psychosis is simply the presence of hallucinations, the seeing things that are not there, hearing things that are not there. Actually, you can have hallucination in any of your sensory organs. But the primary hallucinations occur within the eyes, the sensory organs of the eyes, seeing things that are not there or hearing things that are not there. The other primary symptom of schizophrenia are delusions, and that's believing things that are not true. Simply believing things that are not true. These things can be rational things, like believing that someone has broken into your house. That's possible. But if you're believing it and it didn't happen, and you believe it in spite of the evidence, then that's a delusion. I want to move forward. What is the cause of mental illness? There are four primary causes: brain chemical imbalance, genetic predisposition, epigenetic modification, and dysregulation of the physiological stress response. I'm going to go through these quickly. Chemical imbalance is the one that indicates most poignantly that mental health is a health issue. What we know with major depressive disorder and almost all of the psychological disorders, that they have to do with an imbalance of the chemicals that the brain uses to communicate within the cells. When we're born with over 100 billion brain cells called neurons. And what you see here is pictures of neurons and the dendrites. And what you also see in the lower picture are the neurotransmitters. The brain is an organ just like any other organ in the body. It needs all of its components to function properly. And if something is not functioning properly, then you have those symptoms that I just reviewed. And what we know is that there are either higher than normal or lower than normal levels of neurotransmitters that triggers the onset of psychological disorders. The next cause of psychological disorder, and this is very important, is genetic predisposition. Approximately 40% of individuals with a diagnosis, it runs in their families. And I'm just going to share this with you. This is part of my ministry, and God has given me the courage to be transparent. I am diagnosed with major depressive disorder. It runs in my families, all in my family. All of my brothers and sisters, we are all diagnosed with major depressive disorder. That's important because it helps to erode the stigma. Not me nor one of my brothers and sisters woke up one day and said, I want to be depressed. give me disorder. Not me, nor my brothers and sisters did anything to bring this about. It was in our genes. That's powerful information. Now, while we did not have choice because we didn't choose our parents, we would not choose other parents because we love them dearly. We didn't have choice over having the disorder, but we do have choice over what we do about it. So one of the things that I do as part of the assessment process is I want to know what's in your family. Moving forward quickly. Epigenetic modification. Now, I said genetics accounts for about 40% of mental illness. So that's 60% out there that's unaccounted for. But we know that it has to do largely with how our genes respond to the social environment. And a major phenomenon that can trigger the onset of a psychological disorder is trauma. Trauma that occurs during childhood or adulthood. And it's usually over a period of years that the genes will change and permit the onset of a psychological disorder. So that's epigenetic modification. This is the one that I want you to remember, along with family history, is the physiological stress response. And that's what we're experiencing right now. And what I want to do just really quickly is to show you a 1-second video, because this is so important. I want you to see what is going on inside of your body when you are under stress. And then I'll talk about how this connects with the disorders. And hopefully this will start quickly. And again, can you please nod if you can hear it? And I'm going to speed this up because I only want to show you about 1 minute of it. I want you to see what's going on inside of your body.
Our physiological,
Speeding it up. Okay.
the fight or the flight response. It's the response the body needs to protect itself from danger or to fight its way out of a particular problem.
So what have Tom's ancestors conditioned his body to do when he sees a lion? Through the eyes, an area of the brain called the cortex recognizes the lion. The message is sent through to the amygdala, which identifies the lion as a threat. The amygdala then activates the hypothalamus in the base of the brain.
The hypothalamus is the critical part of the brain which then organizes the response to the stress. It sends messages right down through the spinal cord, which then get to the middle of the adrenal gland, the adrenal medulla, and it releases a hormone called adrenaline. And adrenaline is a very important hormone in the stress response. It increases the amount of sugar in the blood, it increases the heart rate, and really increases the amount of energy available to your muscles. The hypothalamus also sends other messages to the pituitary gland, and from the pituitary further messages go to the adrenal cortex, the outside of the adrenal gland, and this makes cortisol. And cortisol is the other key hormone which acts to put up your blood pressure and keep up your blood sugar, and again is a very important protective hormone in a stress situation.
The fight or flight response may...
So I'm going to stop it right there and go back to my slide. I wanted you to see what was going on in the body because it's so important, because this is what is going on in our body right now. It's the fight or flight response. It's activated in response to perceived threat. And we're under a threat now that we have not been under in our entire lives. We haven't been under this kind of threat in this country for over 100 years, and most of us were not here 100 years ago. And what is that threat that we're under? We're under the threat of COVID-19. That's why anxiety is increasing. That's why depression is increasing. You see what happens when those cortisol levels increase because of the fight or flight response. What I wanted you to see is how hard the heart was beating, that the blood was flowing through the body. The purpose of the blood flowing through the body like that is to prepare the body to respond to the threat. breathing rate increases. But what you did hear is that while systems are hyperactivated, other systems are shut down. Our digestive system, our immune system. That's why we're feeling the way we're feeling right now, because of what is going on inside of our bodies. It's impacting the brain. So you can see readily the mind-body connection. Also, what those high circulating levels of cortisol also inhibits the release of serotonin, norepinephrine within the brain that controls the mood. I really wanted you to see that, because there are going to be speakers that are going to give you strategies of how to cope with this stress. And I wanted you to see what was going on inside of your body to make it so that you could have the visual of what's going on. Treatment, I'll go through this quickly. The primary treatments for most psychological disorders: medication, therapy, that's what the psychiatrist, psychologist, psychotherapist, proper nutrition, someone will be discussing that, exercise, spirituality, and I will discuss that really quickly and briefly. Research indicates that 80% of Americans have a faith perspective. It's the lens through which we perceive the world, and the impact of spirituality on the brain has been studied. A leading neurologist has even written a book that says, that's called, and you can see it, How God Changes Your Brain. And he says just focusing, just meditating on God changes those neurons. I showed you the pictures of the neurons and helps them to function properly. He says if God has meaning for you, focusing on God, he becomes neurologically real. So again, that's that mind-body connection. Now, and another thing that we found out through neurological research is that prayer and meditation will mitigate the effects of the physiological response that I just showed you. Contemplating love will reduce that, anxiety and depression. It can change the way the brain functions. So at this time of COVID-19, it's a time where we need to use all of the treatment that's available to us. And I just want to leave you with some final strategies. Now it's the time for us to be deliberate about what we're putting into our minds, because our mind, bodies, and spirit are under attack. We need to be deliberate about what we're thinking. We need to infuse our mind with positive thought. We can spend time in the presence of God, because we know that that can change both our minds, our bodies, and our spirits. And just this final scripture, and God says, don't be anxious about anything. We know what anxiety does. The physiological stress response demonstrates what anxiety does. It's devastating. It wreaks havoc. But he says, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace, and that's powerful. That's not just spiritual. Peace has to do with your mind and body. Peace will mitigate the negative effect of the physiological stress response. Peace will help you to more effectively manage your symptoms of the disorder, so that peace, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Thank you so much.
Carolyn, thank you for that powerful presentation. We received a lot of comments. How can individuals reach out and get in touch with you? Do you have a website, information that you can provide?
The best way to get in touch with me right now, and I am making myself so accessible to everyone because of this, is via phone, 678-764-4697. I'll put it in the chat. Want to let you know, and right now, because of COVID-19, telehealth is readily available to everyone, which means that you can see me, you can see any therapist, you can see a psychiatrist from the convenience of your home. through telehealth. And a very important thing, most insurance companies, and this is unheard of, and I've been practicing since 1999, sure, insurance companies are waiving copays. And in most instances, they're also waiving deductibles. So I'll put my number in the chat. That's the best way to get in touch with me.
Thank you so much. We actually have a very, a good question. The feedback is amazing. So your presentation was not only inspiring, educational, you helped, I think, to dismantle stigma of mental health. I really do. Here's a question, Charlene. How would you tell members of our community to stay mentally healthy during this turbulent time in our country in light of current events?
I want to answer that question quickly, but there's someone that's going to address that. But the one thing that I want to stress with you is that right now is a time that we have to be deliberate with our thoughts. Our psychological survival depends on that. And by what I mean is control the negative thoughts that you allow into your head. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. You already saw what those negative thoughts do. It activates the fight or flight response. We need to be infusing our minds with positive thoughts, and you have an exceptional speaker that's going to give you strategies on how to infuse your mind with those positive thoughts, because what it does is it mitigates against the negative impact of the physiological stress response.
Thank you, Charlene. It's been an absolute pleasure. If all those who are in attendance, if you would respond to the Zoom invite to ensure that we have your email address, we can not only confirm your attendance, but we're also able to send you out resources. So be sure to do that, okay? Thank you, Charlene. Yeah. Our next speaker, Soraya Ndola, certified life coach, empowerment speaker. Soraya, please unmute your device.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sira Ndolo. I'm co-founder of a company called Molding Mindsets. And today I want to share with you some tactics and skills that you can use in order to cope with some of the things we're dealing with COVID-19. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. It's a presentation. You know, if everybody wants I share, just let me know. Just shake your head and let me know if you can actually see what I'm sharing with you guys. Just one moment. Hold on just a second. I don't see what you guys are seeing just yet. Hold on. Okay. Okay, give me just 1 second because it's still not coming up. Hold on 1 second, guys.
Sure, not a problem.
Apologize for the technical. Okay, boom, there it is. All right, so can everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay, are you going to be controlling the PowerPoint for me? That'd be so helpful. Okay. All righty, so I guess I'll go ahead and get started. And are you going to be controlling it for me?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
You're good.
All right, so I'll just let you know when I'm on, move on to the next slide then. All right. So I want to go ahead and just get into it. Social distancing, face masks, gloves, quarantine. I mean, if I said these words to you together in a sentence a few years ago, many people would have no idea what I was talking about. But nowadays in 2020, everyone is buzzing about the coronavirus, and there is so much fear of being inflicted with COVID-19, as well as a slew of so many other problems. The discomfort is palpable. You can almost feel it in the air. And everyone is doing their best to cope with this new way of living. But at times like this, we all need a little bit of help. So thank you all for coming here, and I just hope we can all lean on each other and learn from this and just all walk away with something that will help us be more positive on a day-to-day basis. So we can go on to the next slide. So introspection. The experience of being separated from others can actually cause you to go deeper within yourself. What is introspection? Well, it's the examination or observation of one's own mental and emotional processes. The goal basically for me to share with you is that we all want to make ourselves our greatest project. If you don't know yourself, it's hard to know anything else. And it's very difficult to understand how to cope with things in a way that fits you if you haven't taken the time to really dig deep and find what motivates you, what you're passionate about, what you don't like, and honestly assess what's hurting you mentally. What are you focused on primarily? And introspection is the act of sitting down and evaluating those things so that you can come up with those answers for yourself. It's basically the ability to go within yourself and think about the way you think. It's important because knowing yourself allows you to know what elements of your personality are working to your benefit and what you can improve on. We are all our own greatest project, and it is a valuable skill to be able to improve the quality of your life through self-examination. One example of introspection would be when you meditate to try to understand your feelings. Another example would be writing down your thoughts and feelings, clearing your mind by getting everything out on a sheet of paper, and then releasing those emotions from your body intentionally. Not just journaling, just to keep your hands busy, but literally writing down how you feel with the intention of clearing that energy from your own physical body. It's a cathartic and very relaxing practice to go through when you do it intentionally. And intention is what sets apart so many actions. If you do something with your mind intending a particular action, you have much more control over the outcome you receive. So now that a lot of us are spending time alone at home, especially with changes in work hours and the quarantine that we as a country are just now coming out of, being alone, especially when you're required to do so, does not always feel good. And sometimes even when you want to be alone, it doesn't necessarily feel good. Solitude is simply a state of being alone. But isolation is you being alone and feeling as though you don't have a support system or anyone that you can communicate and go to. You can still have peace of mind and a sense of connection beyond physical communication. It's a state of solitude where you can be by yourself and still feel as though you are in control of your own faculties. But when you're isolated, it's putting you more in a circumstance of emotional distress. And that's what we want to work on. Spending time alone is not inherently bad. Solitude can be a very healthy and rejuvenating experience. It can allow people to reconnect with their feelings and goals, and some people just overall require more time alone than others. I myself am an introvert, and that means in my personal time, I prefer to spend my time to myself. In fact, it can be considered emotionally draining for me to have a lot of social interaction. And so I get a lot of my energy from myself by going off by myself. Whereas extroverts and other individuals who feed off of the energy of other people, they need those social interactions and it helps them. Well, if you're taking the time to do the introspective work, you'll know what category you fall into, and you'll know how much time you need alone, as well as understanding when you need to reach out to other people. This is all where introspection comes in. If you spend the time getting to know your needs outside of the opinions, ideas, or feelings of anyone else, you can more accurately assess what's best for you. Peace, ultimately, is the result of intentional and consistent practice. That is why it's so necessary that we maintain our spiritual and religious practices at this time. We may not be able to gather at churches or attend meetings, but our spiritual connections exist beyond the bounds of walls. And maintaining such connections can happen in the same place that we lay our heads at night. Wherever you are, establish a safe and sacred place for yourself, even if it's your car, a bathroom, or a closet. Anywhere you can go to sit in peace and quiet, if quiet is what you're craving. If you live alone or have a large space all to yourself, you can readily fill that space with things that you like, pictures, memorabilia, all types of images that you find pleasing to you. Intentionally put things that you find pleasing in your field of vision. so that as you look, you have something that makes you smile. The more you are intentional and deliberate about feeling good, the better the outcome will be for you. Everybody, unfortunately, does not necessarily have the privilege of being in control of their space, however. So if you don't have the space all to yourself, I just encourage you to make every effort to pray, meditate, stretch, and move your body every day, and go out into nature as often as you can, every day. Establish a safe space within yourself. And that happens with feeding your mind positive and uplifting things, doing your best to make yourself your own individual sanctuary. So we can move to the next slide. Thank you. So as far as how you interact with other individuals, it's not just about you knowing what feeds yourself, but how it's best for you to interact with some other people. We all have family members and loved ones. Sometimes our loved ones are not necessarily the most uplifting individuals for us to be around. But you must be honest with yourself enough to know if those connections are bringing you positive thoughts or if it's making you feel more negative about yourself. It's very important that we be connected. And using technology at times like this is so important. I'll come back to how we can interact with our family members and loved ones, especially if they aren't necessarily making us feel as empowered as we'd like. But I want to go ahead and focus on how we can use technology right now to our own advantage. Now, just because we can't be close physically right now doesn't mean that we can't be closer than ever and truly have meaningful connections by using the technology we've been blessed with at this time. Just like we're all in attendance today at this wonderful forum, actively seeking out learning resources via Zoom meetings, using Instagram and Facebook Live for celebrations, having family group chats, all of these resources help us to connect with one another and use them to uplift ourselves. Laughing, dancing, having game nights through social media. All of these things are ways that we can use social media in all forms of technology to make ourselves feel better. It's how we're deliberately using it. Websites like Eventbrite often have educational forums and conferences listed. Just search whatever your interests are, and you can add more tasks like this one into your schedule. And everyone's favorite, my personal favorite, YouTube is just a wonderful all-around resource to use for learning, for fun, for entertainment. You can get teaching tips and listen to talks about just about anything you can think of. It's a great resource for both education and entertainment. Now, with that being said, it's also very important that we maintain a balance and not overuse social media or technology overall. And we want to try to limit our screen time, because ultimately looking at TV and getting on social media and interacting with everyone online, it needs to be done in moderation, just like everything else. Experts have actually recommended that 30 minutes or less per day is the maximum amount of time you should be spending on social media. And according to a 2018 study published in the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology, limiting the use of social media to 30 minutes a day can actually lead to better health outcomes. Now, I don't know anyone who actually uses social media for 30 minutes or less, more so maybe 3-4 hours, but we all have work to do, and it's something we can all strive to do. It's not inherently bad, but part of the problem is what I like to call comparison syndrome, where you're looking at the pretty pictures people put up of their lives and comparing your real, ugly, fully aware truths. I mean, nothing, once you get to know all the details of it, is as pretty as it looks in a picture. So you know all the details of your life. And most of the time, our minds highlight the things that we don't enjoy. So when you're looking at the nice images other people put up, you're not comparing your great experiences to theirs. A lot of times you're comparing what you see as what's negative in your experience to what you presume to be positive about theirs. And then it's putting you at a disadvantage emotionally. So we want to be cognizant of how we're using social media, going on there to connect with loved ones, looking at pictures, finding different things to learn, and just looking for reasons to smile are wonderful things to do. But we want to make sure that we're not overdoing it, and that if we're following accounts that are making us uncomfortable, be prepared and comfortable with unfollowing, delete. You control your space on social media. And if you're seeing things that make you feel insecure within yourself, it's your responsibility to acknowledge that and get that out of your face, because your personal feelings about yourself should be a priority always. Now, I want to also talk with you guys about video calls and group chats. My family has been doing that more so recently, and I absolutely love it. We've been talking and seeing each other and being able to really connect with each other in a way that we hadn't necessarily been doing before. So it's been a benefit to us, and I hope everybody's been trying those methods of reaching out. But if you have other people in your life that reach out to you and you don't necessarily feel that sense of comfort in interacting with them, I would love to share with you how important it is that you put yourself first. You are not obligated to speak with or interact with anyone, especially if they're not physically in your space all the time. So try to make sure that you're taking the time to go alone and really evaluate how you feel within yourself, but also how other people make you feel when you're around them. That way you can know who to give your attention to. Your mental health is priceless, and you're so important here on this earth. So I want everybody to be feeling comfortable about their presence here and making the effort to control what is around them and in front of their faces. So we can go to the next slide. So soothing anxiety. Now, everybody's a little nervous right now because we just don't know what tomorrow is gonna bring. I mean, anybody who can tell you exactly what's gonna happen next probably doesn't know for sure and just wants to make you feel a little bit better, and that's okay. So we're doing our best. We don't know, and no one knows. So anxiety often happens when you're super unsure about what's to come, but you're using fear as your basis for predicting the future. And we don't wanna be thinking about what's gonna happen next based off of fear. Kids are in the house and not at school. We don't necessarily have the same work schedules we did before. Many individuals who were working are no longer working at all. And so that can cause a lot of stress. So you gotta find ways to make yourself feel good and use as many tactics as you can to soothe your anxiety. Now, for those who have children at the house, my sister has been so great to share a lot of resources about printables and different things you can use. Now, printables or when you go to different websites, you can print off different activities, you can print off games, you can print off coloring sheets, all types of things that you can use to entertain your kids. And if you don't necessarily have a printer, you don't have to worry about that. You can literally just look for the instructions and follow craft projects, gather the resources, and just get the things you need to participate in the activity without having to print off the instructions. They have a lot of those options as well. On the final slide of this presentation, I have all those resources listed so that you can see some of the printable websites that you can use, some that I know have some decent options and that I actually like to use some, because you know, some of those activities aren't just for adults. Coloring books as well. They're very, very therapeutic and fun, and I like to use them. So I try to encourage everyone to, not just the kids, you know, but that's definitely an option, as well as activities that you see on YouTube. There's always arts and craft projects being presented by different YouTube presenters, and you have so many options with this technology. So please use it to your advantage and not your detriment. It's not what it is, it's how you use it. Now, music is also a wonderful therapeutic resource and has been so since the dawn of time. We've been using music forever. Just like that beautiful song right before I was able to speak to you guys by Sam Cooke. It's therapeutic. It speaks to what's going on right now. And it calls for our acknowledgement that this is not going to be this way forever. It's never been the same. It will always change. So things are going to get better. And using music to reinforce those ideas. Finding songs that make you feel good. There's music on all levels, just like with social media and everything else. It's not the songs, it's how you use them and what you choose to put in front of your face. So if you're already stressed and feeling anxious and angry, listening to music that entices really intense and hyped up feelings of anger within you is probably not the best way to soothe you. If anything, it's going to exacerbate the issue and make you feel more intensity in the same energy you were already feeling. You want to redirect yourself. One thing I love to do is listen to music without words, because sometimes the words honestly just get in the way. You listen to things and that might not even be on your mind, but you can hear somebody's lyrics that will trigger you to thoughts that you were not initially having. So we want to be cognizant of those things as well. I like to listen to crystal singing bowls, Tibetan singing bowls, tongue drums. There's so many different soothing sounds that you can find, especially on YouTube, and they have no words. And then of course there are songs with words. If you've got favorite songs, keep those in your playlist and continue to listen to those things to uplift yourself. Gospel music, any type of genre that you prefer, I say go for it. If it makes you smile, do it as often as you can. Mindfulness practices and just being present in the moment. Some of the mindfulness practices that you can engage in are meditation, prayer. We all have things that we like to do to try to get our minds on track. So if you've been doing the work of introspection, you already know what soothes you. And so doing those things deliberately is the best tactic you can take at times like this. We just want to be as intentional about the things we do right now as possible. So we can move to the next slide. So grieving loss right now it's really strange and difficult time because we can't gather, and often when we lose people through death, one of the main ways we soothe each other is by coming together through wakes and funerals. And right now we're limited by how many people can gather at a particular time. So that can be really difficult, especially when someone you love is lost. You want everyone to acknowledge it. You want everyone to know if something's important to you, you want it to be important to others as well. But right now during this time, especially, it's so significant to acknowledge that if it's important to you, that is important enough. We want everyone to join in. We want everyone to be a participant in the things that we value. But if we can't get everyone on board, I want you to pour as much of your energy into making yourself feel that peace. So some of the ways that you can grieve loss right now without being able to gather like we traditionally would is through things like releasing ceremonies. That middle picture at the bottom of the slide where people will light the lanterns and they fly off into the air. Many of us have seen that that ceremony in movies and other different types of activities that are similar to that. But basically what you're doing is just taking the time to gather some resources, either bags or balloons, whatever you have at your disposal. And what you can do is write the name of your loved one, write something that is a beautiful statement that maybe they used to say, their favorite quote, or anything that reminds you of them. Or if maybe you were at odds before they passed, you write that out. Anything that you need to get out of yourself and release, write it on the bag. You set that afire, it floats off, and as you watch it go off in the distance, you know it's still there, even beyond the time you can see it. And in that same way, we know that when our loved ones pass, their spirit is still there. And so it's a symbolic way of showing that appreciation and love and cherishment of your loved ones, and trying to grieve in a way that we don't necessarily get the chance to traditionally. So just because you can't necessarily have a service doesn't mean you can't create your own service. This is the time to get creative. So the whole idea behind a releasing ceremony or ritual is just to release negativity, pain, past, loss. It's just releasing. And this is something that you can do not just for loved ones passing, but if you've been hurt, if you have traumas from your childhood, if you've been through things, sometimes you just need to write it down and burn that, or set it out, or put it in a bottle and put it in the water and let it float away. You need it away from you, away from your energy. And this is one way to do that on a symbolic level that will help you to get some of that feeling of peace. And like I said before, peace is about practice. Peace is the result of deliberate practice consistently. The more you do things to bring some sense of peace to yourself, the more consistently you experience that emotion. So beyond releasing ceremonies, one thing you can do is deliberately give yourself the opportunity to feel your emotions without time frames. It's very difficult to feel without putting a date on things at this particular time. We don't know what's going to happen next. And sometimes we're being called back to work. A lot of people are going back to work at this particular time. So it feels like just because the country is opening back up, it's time for you to get back to things, even though you haven't necessarily gotten over something. You don't have to feel as though you've gotten over anything until you feel that inside of yourself. Don't put a time frame on this. Don't limit yourself. Don't coincide the actions of the rest of the world with how you're supposed to feel within yourself. If you're angry, give yourself time to work through those emotions. You don't have to stop feeling how you feel just because someone else tells you it's appropriate to do so. In fact, the better way to handle that is probably to distance yourself from the person who's telling you how to feel and go off and feel your emotions until you feel better. Now, leaving legacies through learning is another way that you can honor those that we have lost. due to COVID-19 and a slew of other things. Even what's going on right now with George Floyd. I didn't know him personally, but we have so many people in our lives that we think about when we think about instances like that. And just knowing that his physical life here is no longer an option, it's gone, he's dead now. But his spirit lives on and his legacy can live through us. And one way you can live your legacy for your loved one as you breathe every day is by making a deliberate decision to learn something. If your mother loved to cook and if she had a favorite dish, you can continue her legacy by doing your best to learn to make that dish. Learn to make it with the best of your ability and do that in honor of your loved one. Because them being gone doesn't mean you don't have access to them and you don't have access to their memory, but we must pour love into those things. If we want to find different ways to honor the people that have been lost, those like George Floyd, we need to learn, figure out what he loved. Find what he loved on this earth. What did he love to do? What kind of people did he love to help? What did he give? How did he give back? By knowing that, we can then find a way to incorporate that in our daily lives. And then as we live, we give honor to their life. There are so many ways to grieve. It's time for us to get creative. Now, I just wanted to go on and also touch on the fact that right now is a time many people are in crisis. So I have some resources listed here for those who are in crisis. If you're feeling overwhelmed and you're unsure of what to do, it is always wise to seek help. The Georgia Crisis and Access Line never closed. None of these resources have ever stopped throughout the entire process of COVID-19, and they are 24/7 and always at your disposal. So Georgia Crisis and Access Line, with me being in Georgia, I wanted to put that number there so you know that you can call if you're feeling suicidal ideations, if you just need someone to talk to and you don't feel like you have those support systems among the people you know, even if you do have support systems. And sometimes it just feels better to speak with someone anonymously. You can use that as an option. Of course, as we were saying before, there's also telehealth, which is still available to you. You can use these resources to get that energy out of your body and to speak on the things that you want to improve without necessarily feeling stigma and shame from those that you know. There are always people, strangers, who will be glad to listen and help you. The National Crisis Line is there in the same capacity, but just on a national scale. And as I said before, the resources for the slides are on this final slide here, are all the slides there for introspection. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to ideas.ted.com for more about making connections. And a lot of the information I got there is based on positive psychology. And the book, Positive Psychology, The Science of Happiness and Flourishing by William C. Compton is a great resource. I have that listed there. The Printables website is from a website called Happiness is Homemade, which happiness is homemade. So you're welcome to look at the resources there for printables and activities. And the releasing exercise for the lantern, they actually map out step-by-step what you would need to do if that's something that you and your loved ones would like to participate in at home for grieving loss. You can do that at yogiapproved.com. For more information like this and to hear from more from me and my partner from Molding Mindsets, you're welcome to go to our Instagram page at Molding Mindsets 18, our Facebook Molding Mindsets, as well as our Twitter, the same handle. And our website, moldingmindsets.com, is currently under construction, but by the end of the month, it will be back up and running as well. So thank you guys for your time. I hope it's been helpful, and just thank you for listening to me.
Raya, thank you. I truly understand why you are not only a life coach, but you're an empowerment. You are certainly an powerful speaker, very powerful. So thank you for that. With everything that's going on with George Floyd and the individuals who are protesting, and some rightfully so, many rightfully so, out of anger, historical things that have happened over the past, what is the one thing, in addition to what you've stated, would encourage and empower others to move forward to the next step?
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now? Okay, yes. Great. The one thing that I believe would encourage and empower everyone to move forward is honestly introspection. I feel like it is so important. I mean, it's almost impossible to know how to move forward and what's the next right step if you don't go within yourself and find out what feels right to you, you know? And by doing that, so I'd say meditation, prayer, to know what acts to perform next. We don't want to just be acting. You want inspired action. And in order to have the correct inspired action, you must have an energy that is inspiring you in the right direction. So if you're frustrated and you're angry and you have all your mind clouded with so many emotions, the best thing to do is just be still and to get quiet and to know how you feel and sort through your emotions. And from that clear and grounded space, then we can decide and deliberately make choices that will bring better outcomes.
Certainly. Thank you so very much.
Of course, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Next, we will have a personal story shared by Juliana Watson. Juliana, will you please unmute your device?
Hello, everyone. Can everybody see me?
Yes, thank you.
The title of my story is A Turning Point of Madness. So I grew up in Peoria, Illinois, with a mother and father, 4 sisters and 2 brothers. But all my childhood was chaos. You know why it was chaos? My father was a weekend alcoholic. He wasn't just a weekend alcoholic. He's verbal, emotional, and physical abuse to my mom. He's verbal, emotional abuse to his children. And when he was drunk, he was violent and angry. All my life, I thought my name was a cuss word, because that's all he told us when he was drunk. See, I love my mom, but I had a love-hate relationship with my father. Because he always tried to hurt my mom. And he didn't know how to love his wife or his children. At a very young age, I became my mom's new protector. I was standing between them. I was standing between them when they fight. Because I wanted to protect my mom. Because I love my mom. One day he was coming with my mom with that knife. I grabbed up and protect my mom. He cut me really bad. And meat was hanging everywhere. Blood was everywhere. The police wouldn't call. The child went and took it to the hospital. But that little girl said, my mom is safe. Peace in the house. At the age of 10, I see my mom shoot my father. I say, he's gone, he's never coming back. But she only wounded him, more madness. I used to hate for weekends. I was shy and quiet in grade school. No one knew the secret, not my teacher, not my relatives, not my neighbor, because my mom said, when stayed in the house, stayed in the house. So the secret stayed in the house. At the age of 11, I was sexually abused by a relative. Not any relative. I love this relative and would do anything this relative told me to do. He told me, if you tell, I'm going to say it was your fault. I didn't tell my mom because I thought my mom would stop loving me and punish me. So I kept the secret. As a young teenager, I couldn't look anybody in the eye. But I was good at sports. I played basketball, volleyball, track. I was in the local newspaper, high school newspaper. Everybody knew me, but they didn't know me. I didn't trust or respect men because the ones I did brought harm to me. As a young adult, I went away to college, me and my twin. We had a car, we had a job, we had an apartment, we had a grades, we was doing good. But I worried about my mom day in, day out. Is she okay? Is she all right? I would call home. She said, baby, everything all right. You know, mom's all right. They don't want you to worry. You know, it's not all right. So one night I went to sleep and I woke up early that morning. The voices was in my head. The voices told me to kill my sister's boyfriend. I went in the kitchen, I waited, and I waited, and I waited for him in the living room with a nice little bed. And I waited for him. But he never showed up. My sister showed up. She said, what you doing with that knife? I said, I don't know. Wish I didn't know. I went to put the knife back and I tried to sleep. But the voices was in my head. I had 2 weeks before I graduated. I went to school the next day. I thought my professor was after me, my classmates was after me, but I did graduate. And I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. And I got a job working third shift as a security guard in Midtown, the business building. I went to work one night and locked myself in the elevator like I always do and went to sleep. I woke up that morning, the voices was in my head. They said, you've been raped, you've been raped, you've been raped. The voices was talking to me. I called the police. They came over and got me. We were all over to Grady Hospital. The voice was talking to me back and forth in the police car. I was talking back and forth to the voices. We got to Grady. The race test was negative, but they didn't release me. They took me to the mental floor of Grady Hospital, and I got a name to the documents, and it was schizophrenia. All I wanted to do was be normal. That's all normal. I was ashamed. I was afraid. I didn't want no one to know. I was in denial. It was a vicious cycle. Get a job in the hospital, get a job in the hospital, get a job. Because I started to stop my medication. All I wanted to do was be normal. I didn't like the medication. Zombie, walking slow, weight gain, sleeping all the time. All I wanted to do is be normal. That's all normal. I got stable enough to get a job. In the midst of this madness, I had a baby. I worked a job several months. Then I got off the bus one day going to get the baby. I said, I need medication. I'm doing just fine. But it was the medicine that made me fine. But I didn't connect the two. I was off my medicine for 3 months. The voices came back in my head. The voices told me to kill myself. I took a whole bottle of sleeping pills. The voices told me to hang myself. I tried to hang myself, but I wasn't successful. Then the voices told me to kill my baby. Kill them, kill them. And I listened to the voices and I killed my baby. I got 1 year in jail, 1 year in prison, 8 in probation. The turning point on the madness when I was in that prison cell, I realized I need to take my medicine for the rest of my life. I've been stable for 23 years and I found my normal. I'm okay with my normal. And the person you look on this screen, their normal is different than your normal. And that's okay. My normal is different than your normal. And I'm okay with my normal. My recovery is, I have a support group. I have certain people in my life know my illness, know my stressors, know me, know about the medication. I stay connected with God. I lead a spiritual group in the church. I meditate. I eat right. I exercise. I take my medication. I'm in therapy. I've been married 21 years. My life goal is to be a voice behind the darkness on the journey with those with mental illness. What I tell my peers, this illness don't have to define you. What I tell the leaders of the Bay Area health system, treat the person first and then the illness. Thank you so much for listening to my story.
Thank you. What a powerful, powerful song. It just brings tears to your eyes and bring emotions and thoughts, and maybe not for yourself, maybe for yourself, but certainly for somebody. I can just take a few seconds just to share something really quickly, personally. I remember 10 years ago, my husband, a physician, passed away at home. Then my father passed away shortly thereafter, and then my brother passed away from a car accident, killed on the job. Sometimes grief can overwhelm us. I can assure you that at age 45, I was then when my father passed away, when my husband passed away, to have had so much death at a certain early age, you get overwhelmed sometimes, but I just want to say be encouraged because there are better days ahead. Our next speaker is Dr. Musalima Ali Najali, fitness doctor, PhD of anatomy, neuroscience, founder of Fitness and Health. You are what you eat, nutrition, and mental health. Keep it moving. Exercise and mental health. Dr. Najah Ali, please unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me. Yes, Dr. Muslima Ali, and this afternoon I will be speaking to you about nutrition and mental health, as well as exercise and mental health. Just bear with me while I share my screen here. Just curious, is that showing the slideshow view for you all? It is, okay. All right, so nutrition and mental health. So I want to talk a little bit about what nutrition is and mental health and the intersection of those two, right? So the actual definition for the intersection of nutrition and mental health is called nutritional psychiatry. And when you think about nutrition, you have to think about the whole spectrum of nutrition, from where the food is grown, how it's grown, to how it's being marketed, where it is in the store, the type of store that it lands in, and then how it gets into your home, and then how it gets served on your plate. So there's a long chain from a seedling, from a seed into getting into your mouth, right? And then the effects of that on your body. And then mental health, and we've had some very, very profound speakers already on mental health. So I'm going to focus a lot more on the nutrition piece. So the intersection of nutrition and mental health is called nutritional psychiatry. And at the root of it is the question, do certain foods have the ability to positively or negatively affect your mental health? And by and large, the results are inconclusive. And what that means is that the negative effects of certain foods on your mental health has been vastly identified, vastly researched, and pretty certain. However, the positive effects of food on your mental health, that's where it becomes a little bit tricky. But we do know that there are negative effects of certain foods on your mental health. So that's where we can start with. That's something we can do something about that, right? So let me ask you, what is your relationship with food? How many of you too often sit down to eat and before you think about it, your whole plate is gone and you wondered what happened to your food? Did it disappear? Did you eat it? Are you enjoying it? Are you taking your time when you're eating your food, or is it just something to do? Are you sitting down at a table with eating your food? Are you sharing it with your family? Do you eat in your car? Do you eat walking and standing? All of these things impact how we have our relationship with food. So let's talk about some positive and healthy relationships with food. Food isn't labeled as good or bad. They're not good or bad foods. You can choose what foods that you think are going to benefit you the most and which foods will probably not benefit you or harm you, but foods in of themselves aren't good or bad. We minimize opportunities to make bad food choices. So if you know that you struggle with diabetes, or you're pre-diabetic, then maybe you are conscious about what you're supposed to eat, limiting your sugar intake, limiting what you even bring into your house or where you choose to be around. You're unrestricted with food choices. There are a lot of diets, fad diets that are out there that eliminate an entire food group, right? And while there are people who do see lots of benefit from those types of things, or they have perceived benefit from those as far as weight loss specifically, you don't ever want to eliminate an entire food group from your diet. Maybe the amount that you're eating needs to be moderated and looked at, but just eliminating a complete food group from your diet is not the best long-term health impact. And you want to have purposeful eating, being mindful of what you're eating, chewing your food, tasting your food, enjoying your food, and then simply cooking. Kind of realizing how often we are ordering in or eating microwavable foods and things of that nature. When you cook your food, by and large, those foods are going to be more healthy. So some unhealthy eating habits: rushed eating, chewing quickly, swallowing quickly, not really taking time to enjoy your food, not even really digesting your food to the point, chewing it to the point where it can be digested, overeating, and conversely undereating. Both of those can lead to a myriad of health problems. Emotional eating, which I think to an extent most of us are guilty of, right? But the constant emotional eating can be problematic. And then yo-yo dieting. And so that's getting on a fad diet. And I don't want to name any names because people have have seen some good results, but eliminating something, and then the minute you come off of it, you gain everything that you've lost. So just dieting just to lose weight and not really looking at your food choices as a total lifestyle change. So let's talk about that. What can we embrace? And what can we avoid, right? So first, let's take a look at this picture. This picture is a plate from choosemyplate.gov. And these are the recommendations. We've gone through a couple of iterations of foods and how much of foods we're supposed to eat. But this one is particularly nice because it just basically says your plate should be half full of fruits and vegetables. And then you see that nice green portion right there, lots and lots of vegetables. We are supposed to have 5 to 7 servings of vegetables every day. That means that you're having vegetables at almost every meal, vegetables with snacks, and then you're doubling up sometimes on those servings. And fruits. So half of your daily intake of food should really be fruits and vegetables. And then on the other half of the plate, you have your grains and proteins split about equally, and then a small amount of dairy. And what's not listed in this, but is very necessary and vital, is also water. Okay, so we want to embrace fruits and vegetables, eating a variety of nutrient-dense foods. And we're going to talk about that. Those are whole foods, foods that are nice and rich. Overwhelmingly, they are fruits and vegetables, especially your leafy green vegetables, your lean proteins, your beans, legumes, seeds. You want to embrace eating at specified times. So you want to not just eat from the moment you wake up until the moment that you go to bed. You're not giving your digestive system a chance to rest. You're not allowing your digestive system to really do the work to get the nutrients out of the food if you're eating from such a long period of time. If we're waking up at about 6 a.m. and we're going to bed at 10 p.m., then to eat for over 12 hours of the day, that's a long time, and we're not giving our system enough time to rest. So eating at specified times and monitoring and planning what you eat. Using portion control. The ideal plate size is a salad plate size. We have the big, large plates, and then we want to fill the entire plate with food. But if you use a salad plate and fill that plate, then you're more than likely eating what's in the portion size. We want to avoid highly processed foods, blatantly sugary foods, foods with little to no nutritional value, eating at all times of the day and the night. We talked about that a little bit prior to now, and fad diets. So doing a liquid fast and then coming off of it, just kind of taking your body through so many tumultuous changes. So what are some barriers to success? Because a lot of these things that I'm saying are things that you've heard, things that you know. So what is keeping us from acting on these things? A clear understanding as to what constitutes healthy foods, because that is such a wide spectrum, right? And then if you really get into it, then, eat fruits and vegetables. Well, do they have to be organic? And then we can really get bogged down into the nitty gritty. So a clear understanding as to what constitutes healthy for general rules is the perimeter of the grocery store. So things that are on the outsides. If it can die in your fridge, then it's good. If it can stay forever on your shelf or in your pantry, then not so good. In moderation, right? In moderation. So if you have to go to the store because you've run out of fruits, you've run out of vegetables, you've run out of eggs, you've run out of seafood, you run out of those things that you can find in the perimeter of the store, that's a good thing. Okay, so by and large, those are the healthy foods. Access to healthy foods, food deserts, and then food swamps. Food deserts compared to food swamps. Food deserts are where there are not a lot of grocery stores, where there are only corner stores to get foods. And then food swamps are where there are foods, but then there's like 2 McDonald's within 2 blocks. So then the food options are not foods that you really should be readily eating. And then a huge barrier to success, I work with residents in inner city Baltimore implementing community programming, is implementing change in a household that doesn't welcome change. If you're the only person in your house that is saying, all right, we're gonna now eat kale for dinner, and you haven't been eating kale for dinner in a while, everybody's gonna look at you a little bit strange. So trying to implement change in a household that isn't really ready to do that just yet. How do we do that? How do we overcome those barriers and achieve success? You start small, right? You swap in one good nutritional habit per week, per month, for as long as it takes you to get that habit down. If we're supposed to eat 5 to 7 servings of fruits and vegetables, and you think about what you ate today and you've only eaten 1 or 2, then go ahead and add some more. Do you know that you can add greens to your breakfast? Having spinach with eggs, putting spinach on a sandwich, adding a little spinach to your salad. Those are good ways to incorporate more fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables are a quick carry snack So things that you can take with you to go. They're the first fast food, I like to say. So swap in one good habit at a time. Drink water. We are a dehydrated community, a dehydrated country. We don't drink enough water. And when I say water, I mean water by itself, not water in juice, not water in soda, water by itself. And drinking the amount of water that you need to survive is really half of your body weight should be water. So if you are 200 pounds, then approximately 100 ounces is how much water you should be drinking. And just to give you some relevance, that's almost a gallon of water a day. Another thing that we can do, which I've seen a lot of people doing, especially during COVID-19, is to grow something. Maybe we don't all have a green thumb and we might not all be Farmer Joe, but we can grow something, whether it's an herb of mint or rosemary, just something that where you can see and cultivate a love of greens and a love of the earth in your own time. I think it kind of makes you appreciate the food more. And then you add on gradually, right? So you start small with one thing that you want to do, and then you continue to add on. You involve the people in your household. If you're cooking more, then you involve your housemates, your husband, your children, whomever might live with you. You involve them in that process. You have them help you meal plan. You have them help you make grocery lists for the store. Okay, and then you allow yourself to enjoy all foods in moderation. Like we said in the beginning, there are no good or bad foods, but there are good and bad choices that we can make surrounding those foods. So I wouldn't say just never eat ice cream again, or don't ever, have a cookie, but in moderation. Look at those portion sizes and try to stick to that. Take them out of the container, put the container away, and then go back to it. All of these things, these healthy foods, that they have, while they have not shown to definitely increase your mood and your mental health, avoiding those sugary foods, avoiding processed foods, they have definitely shown to have an increase and an improvement on your mental health. Okay, so moving on, exercise is medicine for the brain. Exercise is medicine for the brain. What happens to your brain when you exercise? By and large, your heart rate increases, which produces more oxygen to the brain. Then there's a release of hormones, more specifically endorphins. And what those endorphins help to do is combat stress. They help you to feel good. They help to promote sleep, and they diminish the perception of pain. So while we are understanding, based on some of the talks earlier, that mental health is not simply feeling good or feeling down. It's not just a temporary feeling, but the moods that can be associated with the mental health concerns that people may have, that we can help to impact. And that is what is impacted when you exercise. When you exercise, you promote brain plasticity, which means that our brain is not a fixed organ. When we learn, we make imprints, we make things, impacts on our brain, and it's fluid, it can be molded. So we promote brain plasticity by stimulating the growth of new connections between neurons deep in our brain and cortical areas of the brain, specifically the frontal cortex right here in the front of your head, which promotes executive function and decision making. So if you're exercising and you're increasing the growth of connections to those areas, and the idea is that then you will be able to make better decisions and be able to function just a little bit better upon exercising. The benefits of exercise on mental health. Exercise invigorates your cardiovascular and neuromuscular systems. It shows promising effects on moods, attention, and memory. Exercise is used as an early treatment instead of drugs, especially in those who are young and teenagers and adolescents. It's a go-to as opposed to prescribing drugs immediately. Exercise has been proven to combat the effects of chronic pain on your mood. So exercise can, the endorphins from exercise can be a dampening. It can help to diminish the effects of pain. And we know that being in pain is a huge impact on how you feel. Being in pain can totally dampen your mood. And also moderate cardio activity provides an almost instant effect on your mood, whereas most prescriptions take about 6 weeks to have an impact. That exercising can almost make you feel better upon completing the exercise, okay? And lastly, it helps to boost your self-esteem. So you exercise, you feel good, you look good, you might lose weight, and that helps to boost your self-esteem. So let's talk about exercise a little bit. There are 4 types of exercise, right? There is cardiovascular exercise, where you have increased breathing and heart rate for a sustained period of time. It keeps your circulatory and respiratory systems healthy. For example, walking, jogging, running, swimming, biking, dancing, tennis. All of those are examples of cardiovascular exercise. And it's the most popular exercise. When people say exercise, typically you think of cardiovascular exercise. This exercise is the one that most people will do, and it has the profound benefits. Strength exercises is adding weight to a muscle. It helps to keep the bones and the muscles strong. And you can do that by actively lifting weights, using resistance bands to push against the weights, and to use your own body weight in an exercise such as push-ups or squats. Lesser ideas of exercise when we think about exercise are flexibility, which is increasing your range of motion around a joint.
That's what I need. Ooh.
As we see in yoga and Tai Chi, and just simply deep stretching. We take for granted some of those things. I think that I have a 6-month-old, and she gets her exercise. She stretches and she's flexible, and then we kind of forget about it. And then we get a little bit older, then we start to be like, oh, you know, these things are a little crickety, and we're going to go back to it. If we kind of keep it up throughout our years, then it helps to preserve our bodies and preserve our mental health, right? And the last one that we almost never think about until it really starts to hit us is balance. And balance is a result of having a strong core, and it is pivotal in preventing falls. That helps to keep us upright. It helps us from falling. And those are some of the injuries that are huge comorbidities as we age, falling and breaking our hips, things of those nature. So some examples of those exercises are heel to toe walking, like as on a balance beam, and standing on one foot and switching to the other foot, things of that nature. Those are balance exercises. A good exercise program has all of those, even if it's not the same. So if you're working out for an hour, you can break that up where you have a nice warm up, where you're doing some strength training. Some flexibility, in the beginning, about 5 minutes. And then you work up to a little bit of a sweat or an increased heart rate and increased breathing for another 20-25 minutes. And then you could add some strength training with your body weights, with going up a hill, even that can add some strength training, things of that nature, for another 15 minutes or so. And then you do some balance exercises and you cool down with flexibility again. Now, when it comes to exercise, the question that I get the most is, but what should I do? Do whatever you want to do, right? Find your fitness is what I like to say. You have to do what you like the most. If I like running, but you hate running, you're not going to go running. You're going to go, I'm not about that running stuff. So you don't like running. Do you like dancing? Do you like yoga? Do you like Tai Chi? Do you like Zumba? Do you like walking even? So you have to find what you like the most and then do that. And then slowly incorporate other aspects of the other forms of exercise to make it a robust exercise program. And in these days of being indoors, digital screaming fitness programs are available. Beachbody and Daily Burn are very popular. There are also lots of, we're inundated with fitness professionals on YouTube and Instagram. Those can be a little bit hard to sort through. Just to make sure that if you're looking at someone on YouTube or Instagram, that they either have a program that's reputable and that they're a certified fitness professional. They will gladly tell you that they're certified or that they're not certified, or they're just out here throwing around tires or whatever it may be, because there are a lot of people who are doing things and you could get injured. So just be very careful if you're going to follow someone on YouTube or Instagram that they're certified and that they know what they're doing. And the last thing I want to say is go outside. Even though we are being recommended to shelter in place and to stay at home, walks around your neighborhood are okay. Going outside to your front yard or your backyard is okay. We're not promoting going to the gym, obviously, or maybe even not going to, if you know that there's a park that's crowded, maybe not going to a crowded park. That might not be the best idea right now, but outside is free. Breathe fresh air, release endorphins, get oxygen to your body. All of these things can help to enhance your mood. And going outside is something that I think is really great for families. We have 4 children, and I almost have to take them outside every day. So I am pushing the baby in the stroller. My husband might be running, and the 3 younger ones are on their bikes. And we make loops around our neighborhood, different loops, just so that everyone can kind of join in it, and something that you can do together as a family or with your loved ones. And then we have your recommended exercise by age. So not only is it good for mental health, but it's something that anyone can do of all ages. So children 3 to 17 should really have 1 hour of physical activity daily. And there are lots of different subgroups within that larger group, right? So when they're really, really young, their exercise doesn't have to be structured. I don't have to tell my 4-year-old, go outside and do some exercise. He's going to run, he's going to play, he's going to jump, he's going to twist, he's going to turn, he's going to do whatever he needs to do. And that's fine. That's physical activity. And that includes for him even cardio, all of those things that they're doing. They're pulling up on things. They're building up their strength. And as you get older, maybe having some structured activity is recommended. But for adults 18 to 64, 5 hours of moderate exercise or 150 minutes of vigorous exercise per week is what is recommended. And here you want to include at least 3 of the 4: cardio, strength training, and flexibility. And then for seniors 65 and above, 2.5 hours of moderate exercise or 75 minutes of exercise weekly is what's recommended. And you definitely want to include balanced exercises, because just as like when we're babies, as we age, our sense of balance starts to deteriorate. And so we have to try a little bit harder to maintain that. So at this time, that concludes my presentation. I believe I was supposed to have a few minutes for questions. You can drop them in the chat box. And if you want to reach me after this, you can send me an email at drali@fitandhealthyu.com, or you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Dr. Ali Fitness Doc.
Thank you, Dr. Ali, for the fitness and healthy options that you gave us, and also encouraging us to grow our own home vegetation. Very
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of questions for you. The first one: how many people in the African American community and beyond are experiencing secondary trauma from the George Floyd and Arbery Ahmaud murders?
Ooh, how many people? I would dare say all of us. I don't know that you can be African American and not be impacted by that to some level, you know, whether it's you directly or your loved one. But no, I would think it's 100%. And it's not just these, because it's ongoing. Those are the most recent that we know of, right? But I would think that all of us are impacted. And like Sarah said earlier, like we have to protect our mental spaces. I'm very cautious about how long, I shouldn't say very, I try to be cautious of how long I stay on social media, seeing the images, sharing images. I do not watch the videos. Even the stills are very disturbing, very disheartening to see. So I try to be very mindful about how I allow those things to enter my headspace, because food, by and large, is the food that we eat, right? But anything that we intake through any of our senses, whether we're seeing it, we're hearing it, we're taking it, we're smelling it, those impact what we're feeding our body. And so we have to be very mindful about those images and the sounds and what we're feeding our body.
Certainly. And Dr. Ali, I must stand corrected. It wasn't how many people, it was just, the statement was many people in African American community are impacted. So I apologize for that.
Okay, no problem.
The question, follow-up question is, how do we deal with the secondary trauma as it relates to Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd?
I think some of the things that we're doing as far as seeking professional help, I know there's a lot of venting on Facebook. There's a lot of, kind of even the uprisings that we're seeing in the cities. Those are it's built up. It's built up frustration. It's built up rage, and at some place it has to go somewhere. We're all familiar with the part of the Langston Hughes, and forgive me if I quote it wrong. You know, what happens to a dream deferred, and at some point you have these dreams for yourself in your life and things that you're trying to do, and even if you feel like you made all the right decisions and made all the right choices, that a walk outside or a jog outside, and it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. Like, I'm overhearing about what the circumstances are, what you could have been doing. It does not guarantee, it doesn't warrant someone taking your life. And so I think seeking mental health, whether it's in a collective by professionals, there are a lot of resources out there, and I do apologize for not having that up, but peer mental health, virtual mental health, healing circles, these are becoming more and more popular the longer that we are required to shelter in place. I'm in Maryland now. We haven't technically opened back up, so we are still sheltering in place by and large. So the longer that we're sheltering in place, the more I'm seeing avenues for therapists to reach out, whether it's peer counseling. There are a lot of peer counseling happening, and then seeking out mental health professionals. I appreciate forums like this because I think it's definitely taking away the stigma for mental health. And earlier it was stated that that is the most common, and I truly believe that however there's a range of whatever you're going through, that's the most common. I'd be surprised to hear, if we really thought about it, how many of us have not been impacted by some kind of mental health crises. I know I have postpartum depression, very real, and I've had to seek professional help for those types of things, and I know what to look for. I know what my triggers are. So I have to look for those things, and I'm not ashamed, and I'll tell friends and family. Me and my husband have gone to couples counseling, so therapy, counseling, seeking help, we have to destigmatize that. It's not anything to be ashamed of. It's not anything to be sad about, embarrassed about. We have to state it loudly, state it boldly, because it can only help us.
Certainly. Charlie, I definitely want to ask you this question here. I know we're short on time. The question says, how important is buying organic?
Buying organic, how important? So how important, I would say probably not very important in as much as it is eating the proper foods. Like, if it was a choice between buying organic and not overdoing it on dessert 5 times a day, I would say just don't overdo it on dessert. So when you get down to it, if you can, for certain foods, for foods that don't have peels, and for things like strawberries, especially because they're such a ground fruit, then maybe. But by and large, get fruits and vegetables how you can, and eat fresh. First and foremost, fresh is the best, frozen, and then canned if you must. But that's kind of the hierarchy of fresh fruits and vegetables.
Certainly. But Dr. Ali, we thank you for your time and your value-added presentation. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that song there. Next, we have Dr. Green, Journey Edge Life Ministry, Cellular Memory. Dr. Green will be our final speaker this evening. Dr. Green, will you please unmute your device?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon. Oh, wow. Such an awesome forum. A load of information. My name is Dr. Debbie Green, and the ministry is called Journey's Edges Life Ministry, that's focused on women and children that are suffering from mental and emotional illness. We had a variety of speakers on the platform that gave us so much information to continue our productivity in life and benefit us to the highest level. And I want to thank everyone for doing so, because I truly benefited from that. On another note, we want to keep in mind that a lot of the things that we have been experiencing over a period of timing, just in all races, but especially the African-American race. The presentation I'm doing today is actually a discussion dealing with generational curses versus cellular memory. Now, please understand that both of these coincide with each other, which is a comparison because we are mind, body, and soul, as Mrs. Flagg and all of the other speakers eloquently discussed. And because of that, we have a spiritual connection to God. We are the image of God. And so we experience things on an earthly platform, but also on a spiritual platform. And due to that information that's already been put out there, sometimes we don't always know what our legacy, our ancestors, everything that's been experienced for years and years beyond even our parents or our grandparents. So I just want to share some information with you. I've been studying this for quite some time, and I have gained the knowledge to present this to you today. So if you can go to the next screen for me, please. What are generational curses? Before I actually give you a definition for this, I want you to understand curses is things that actually interrupts our lives. It interrupts the productivity of our lives, the joy. It takes away the peace. And it's not that it's something that we have to deal with every day, but this is a reality. It's a reality because this is something that everyone on this earth actually visits. According to this particular definition, is a cumulative effect mentally, physically, and spiritually on a person or family from an ancestor's choices or practice in the past, resulting from consequences, actions, beliefs, and sins passed down. Now, please understand that if you don't know your genealogy or what your mother and father or grandparents or even beyond that, I would suggest that you study. I would suggest that you seek and find it, because a lot of things that we are experiencing is from a collaborative of things that's also been in our past history. Unfortunately, it's not something that we want, but it is something that we are dealing with, including the everyday cycling of situations that we're facing, the COVID-19, dealing with racial divide. All of these things are continuous cyclings. All of these things that you've seen on the earth right now has happened before, more than we can count. So what we want to do is be aware of what we're seeing, hearing, and that way we can best deal with it. So where does it come from? How does it arrive? According to the Word of God, we are visiting our forefathers' sinful nature, which means this has happened and began way beyond we could possibly imagine. Everything that you see that's occurring right now is from deep down in our corridors of our history, with a advantageous of study, as I said, to go far and beyond just what you see or what you hear, then you have a better understanding of what that you're dealing with on an everyday level. Could you go to the next screen for me, please? What is cellular memory? It is a hypothesis stating that the body itself is capable of storing memories as opposed to only the brain. Our cells remember the past experiences in life right up to the here and now. Our cells are constantly updating our personal data. What does that mean? That means that everything you see that's coming into your sensory cortex, everything that you hear is being memorized. And please understand, I don't want to put fear there. I want to put awareness there. So as those other speakers shared with you, you have to limit your ability to even go on the news or even social media, because the more you do that, it becomes a repetition in the subconscious mind states. And before you realize it, that this thing called fear, which is false evidence appearing real, will start to create certain dialogues. It starts to create certain mindsets that's altering the way you even feel about yourself or feel about other people or situations or circumstances. And these things are something that we, as I said, that years ago when our mothers and fathers experienced racial divide, or even dealing with certain things that's happening on the earth, such as sickness and death, they experienced that. So is it traumatizing? Absolutely. We are totally exposed to it, but with a onset of, like I said, dealing with your mindset of focusing on the positive nature of things, eating right, as Dr. Ali said, getting the proper therapy. All of that is a collaborative thing that we can continue to benefit us so that we can move on. Will you still remember? One thing about the memory cortex, we can't make it disappear, but we can deal with it. We can create new pathways of mental focuses, concentrations. And as we do that, we'll start renewing the mind. The Word of God says, be renewed by your mind. So this is an everyday thing, every moment of the day that we constantly renew ourselves. By renewing ourselves, we are able to create new experiences, new things. So our goal is to keep as productive as we can as we continue to walk this journey called life. Could you go to the next screen, please? So curses versus memory. Our generational sins, as I put it here, sins are passed down to the person through the father's past. Genesis 9:18 through 29 makes this effective. What happens is that all of the memories that all have been experienced, I mean, I'm going back as far as slavery time, you know, even before that time, a lot of those things have been a collaborative of feelings and thoughts and patterns. And it makes us more vulnerable to depression and all of these things that we're dealing with. And of course, it's a biological chemical response as well as genetics. And that's how this is actually, that comes into a reality that we deal with each and every day. It breaks down the family structure and promotes individualism, which means sometimes we go inside and we don't often speak to others when we feel depressed. We don't often tell people when we're going through a lot of traumatized things, because a lot of times we think we can handle it by ourselves. But the goal is to allow yourself to be transparent. This is how you battle. You are in a place where you are in full authority of your mindset. You're in full authority of your being, because you are made in the image of God. So which means that you have the ability to move past all of the things that you may be struggling with. We should never forget that we can be set free from this bondage of sin. And sin is just anything that disrupts the nature of the productivity or peace in a person's life. Anything that takes away the joy. And as you can see, you know, it's a lot of disruption. It's a lot of mental distortions right now due to a lot of everyday circumstances beyond our control. So just be encouraged. Be encouraged that you are in fully control of taking back your life in the highest self. The highest self is when you wake up in the morning, affirm your healing, affirm your thoughts. Speak to yourself, say, I am peaceful today. I am focused, I am strong. And as you continue to do this, you are then changing those neuropathic mindsets of things that might have been there that's keeping you under a negative office. So just be encouraged to do so. Healing of the mind, body, and soul. Healing occurs when you renew the mind, self-mastery and God's love. What is self-mastery? Self-mastery is when you are totally aware of what you're doing. You should be your own security guard. I often tell people that everything that's coming in, you should question it. Is it good for you? Is it bad for you? How does it make you feel? Does it make you feel uncomfortable? And if it's coming in, question it. Question the words that you hear. Question the behavior and the thoughts that you're hearing. In doing so, you will then have a place where you can make conscious decisions because you have an emotional mind, you have a rational mind. When those minds are created and blending together, you have a harmonious mind, which means that now it's wise. You have a wise mind to go forth and say, I am what God created me to be. I am the image of God. I will not live in fear. I will not live in anything that distorts me or that breaks me down. Research your ancestors. Seek and you shall find the truth. A lot of times we don't look into our ancestral gene. We just kind of, you know, the here and now says, and our reality says, okay, this is all we have. No, you have so much more. It's so much more that you have. You want to know what happened to your great-grandmother and your great-grandfather. You want to know what type of life they lived. So, you know, just research it and you will be surprised what you can find. Practice self-discipline in all areas of your life. Self-discipline in food, as Dr. Ali spoke, self-discipline in limiting with boundaries, dealing with drama from other people's circumstances. You are not in a position right now, none of us are in a position to take on other people's burdens or other people's troubles. Yes, you want to listen, but you can't allow it to internalize it. You cannot allow an external cause an internal structure or damage. Meditate on the word of God daily. What does that mean? Read a scripture. Get a scripture that you can meditate on daily, that you can memorize. And when you feel overwhelmed, I don't care if you're out there in the public, in the grocery store, something may trigger you, you can then, you know, be able to, you know, speak on that and then go forward in it. And as you continue to do that, then you will see the strengthening that you so rightly, you know, need to go forward in life. If you want to know more information about generational cycling or cursing, please feel free to email me. Journey's Edges, which are Z, Life Ministries @gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Very informative and very powerful. So thank you very much. At this time, we are nearing the closing of today's forum, and it has been our absolute pleasure to hopefully have informed you, to motivate and to inspire. That was our overall goal. Closing remarks we will have by Carolyn McKenzie, once again, founder and president of Mental Health in Underserved Communities. Unmute.
Can everybody hear me? Well, I just want to say that I am so happy. Initially, we had scheduled the mental health fair, and God had blessed us with this perfect venue, brand new, and they donated the entire building for us. And then, of course, COVID-19 came, so we had to postpone the date, and I kept looking and saying, are we ever going to have it? And then we were nearing the end of the month, and I talked to Africa and Mina one day, and they captured my vision, and they showed me how I could transfer this brick and mortar concept into the virtual world. So here we are. So I want to thank the presenters, the donors, the t-shirt customers, the vendors, and without Africa and Mina. Now Mina, man, that girl is relentless. She took this Zoom project on, but she has a very strong IT background, but she mastered Zoom in a few days. And I am so glad that she did. And so thank you. And then Africa, guess what? That very first song with the girls swimming, that was Africa singing in the background. She pulled the fast one on me. So Africa, thank you so much. And I just want you to know that my little brother, Floyd, are you still on? Are you still here?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, good. Well, my little brother Floyd gave me my very first Zoom one-on-one class 2 months ago. Now look at me, I am so grown. And so I'm so excited about the virtual world. We are planning a lot of events. Let's Talk About It is going to be a monthly group therapy session. We are going to have I Choose to Live, which is a suicide prevention rally. All of these things will be on Facebook Live or YouTube or Zoom. I'm really turned on about this virtual world, so I'm going to be downright dangerous because I love coordinating events. And Sonny, you are so wonderful. Your voice is so beautiful. You just came to my aid. You know, I said, I'm looking for a mistress of ceremony, and you just said, I'll do it. And I am so grateful. I'm grateful to everyone who participated in this. And I just want you to know that we have people from all over the globe. Hassan, our social media manager for my Inspire Artisan Designs and Business Smarts, he's here all the way from Pakistan. And we also have, the logo was designed by Wasim. He lives in Pakistan. The flyer designed by Radia Islam. She lives in Bangladesh. And then the banner and the agenda designed by Arslan, he's in Pakistan. So these are my babies around the globe, and I love you so very much for always supporting me. See, I get up and I work around 2, 3 in the morning, and I would be lonely, and then God sent me a whole family to work the same time I do because they're 10 hours ahead. So I thought that was just so cute because we work all the time, and we are going to remove the stigma. Words cannot express my gratitude for your attendance. Words cannot express the love that I have for my niece, who was my best friend. Words cannot express my determination to keep turning my pain to purpose. Words cannot express my determination to break the chains of silence and remove the stigma of mental illness. The video from today's forum will be on Facebook Live and YouTube, thanks to Hassan, our social media manager. And the links will be emailed to you, so just look in your email and you'll see everything that you need to see, a recap of today, an evaluation survey. And I guess I can say goodbye, because guess what? I haven't eaten a morsel of food today, so I need to go get me some chicken wings. I know nutritionals, I'm not supposed to do it. Floyd, I know you don't want me to eat wings, but I'm gonna go get me some wings. I love you guys. Thank you so very much for participating, and you'll be hearing from us. God bless.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening.
Great job, everyone.
Great job, Sonny. It's so good to see you. I think it's been about 15 years, maybe 10 or 15 from St. James. Did you attend St. James?
Yes. What's your name?
Gwendolyn Charlie is what I was.
Ah.
But it's Brian
Yes.
now.
Very nice to see you again.
I think that's the same Sonny.
Yeah, very nice to see you. Very nice. I have your contact information. I'll be in touch.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. Okay. Fair play.
Gwendolyn, we played the Clark Sisters just for you.
You better come up. Thank you.
I had to sneak that one in for you.
Loved it. Loved it. You did such a wonderful job. This is amazing. Thank you for letting us be a part.
Okay, let's go eat. I'm getting ready to go eat. I love you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, it was a good forum. I enjoyed it. You guys go full of peace. Go with faith, not fear. This is Jesse Barber speaking.